Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 33 of the Yakking podcast. And we talk to you about life, business, and more, and we bring you tips and ideas for the changing world we live in. We always have interesting guests for you, and today's guest is no exception. But as always, I will hand over and welcome Kathleen, and she'll do the honors to our guest. Hi, Kathleen.
Hello, Peter, and welcome everyone. We so appreciate you tuning in to our videos and as well as our podcasts, and always appreciate your comments. So please keep them coming. As always, we have a special guest with us today, and we're going to let him tell you a little bit about himself. But please welcome J.L. Callison. J.L., good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Perhaps you can tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, my background is pretty varied. My philosophy has always been, if it's legal, moral, and honest, and I can make a dollar at it, I'll do it. So I've been involved in retail management. I've been in petroleum management. I've been in recycling. I've driven over the road, delivered RVs all across the United States and Canada. I've driven a limousine. I've done a whole lot of different things until just a little over 7 years ago when I contracted the Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I've been disabled and unable to work since. Keep trying to talk the doc into releasing me, but he says no. And I can't. I just want to think that I can. I'm fine from the neck up. Well, that's questionable. But but anyhow, that's when I started writing. I get bored looking at four walls, and I hate television, so I started writing, and that's as much as you get from me. So,
Peter?
Wow, I'm just trying to keep track of that varied career in all sorts of different things, delivering RVs and limousines and petroleum. Wow. What was your best part? What did you enjoy most out of all those?
Driving. Absolutely. Delivering the RVs was more fun than just about anything else I've ever done. I love to drive. I've been driving something since I was legally able to, and some things I wasn't. But it was out in the country and nobody cared.
Right.
It was driving for work. It wasn't just me running around. Driving, my dad was a truck driver. Going over the road to me was, it's just pleasure.
Right, right.
My brother is still a driver, and he keeps tormenting me by posting pictures and so many of the places I've been, and I know where he is, and it just makes me homesick. But
I bet.
But I absolutely loved that. I loved driving in Canada. Y'all have a beautiful country up there.
We do.
Just absolutely. And some of the nicest people I have ever met in my life.
So did you go right across Canada? Have you been to both sides, both coasts, west, east, and west?
I've been to all of your lower provinces except Quebec.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, bad luck, Kathleen.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah. I just never got a load going into Quebec.
Right.
And primarily East Coast and West Coast. I took a lot of trailers up to Alberta because of the oil boom a few years ago.
That's right, of course, yes.
And they couldn't build housing up there fast enough, so we were taking RVs up there for people to live in. And I loved driving across Saskatchewan. A lot of people think Saskatchewan is flat and boring. I got out there, and it's gorgeous, especially when the canola is blooming or rape, whichever one you want to call it. It's just beautiful.
Yep. Well, you've seen a lot more than I have. I've been here 17 years, and I haven't been outside of Ontario not for lack of trying, just circumstances have kept me here. But I've been quite far north in Ontario, so I've got something to look forward to. Back to Kathleen. She's got something to ask you, I think.
So you, you said now that you've become a writer, usually people that write are voracious readers themselves, and you started off as that. You were a voracious reader as a young child, were you not?
Yes. My parents started me with the old Humpty Dumpty magazine.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to be familiar with it.
Yep.
But I was reading it myself when I was 4.
Wow.
Just because my parents read to me, and I learned the words just from recognizing them. And I kind of picked up the phonics a little bit, not well, but enough that I could kind of halfway sound out some of the words. And some of my pronunciation was rather off, but I remember the story of Squidge Pie from back when I was 4, and that stuck with me. I don't know why, but that one did, and a couple others, and the moon being made of green cheese and that sort of thing. But that stuck with me and gave me just a hunger to read and get a story. Then when I was in 3rd grade, I had a teacher that really developed that, and she gave us a challenge to read that year. I read over 300 books in my 3rd grade. I read everything in our library there, and some of it multiple times. I read a lot of biographies or biographical novels. I was so hungry to read that I even read A through H of the World Book Encyclopedia.
Oh,
So, that's quite something, yeah.
So, I guess you would say I was a voracious reader. That kind of slowed down after that. I still read a lot. I mean, I always had a book in my hand, but I didn't quite have the volume of reading because the books I read were longer.
Sure.
But I did. I read a lot and still do. I have over 3,000 books in my library here
my
at the
goodness.
house.
Wow.
So as time wore on and you became a teenager and early adult, what was it that captivated you in terms of reading? What kind of books did you like to read then?
Escape. I was in a loving home. Okay, I'm not putting my parents down at all. I have never felt unloved. But my dad was on the road a lot. I was the smallest kid in the school till I was a sophomore. And then it wasn't because I grew, but it was because we moved.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one person in the next school that was smaller than I didn't start growing till I was late junior in high school. I was 4'8" and weighed 95 pounds and carried the bass drum in the marching band when I was a freshman in high school.
Wow.
So it gives you, I was small. We were out in the country. I didn't have a lot of friends, so I read. We didn't have a television in the house, which was, just fine with me. I really didn't care. When I saw the TV, it just didn't do anything for me. I'd rather read it and have the picture in my head rather than somebody showing me what it is. Tell me about it. Let me imagine it. And some call it an imaginarium, and other people call it theater of the mind. And so that's what captivated me with that and the idea that you can do anything you really want to do, and you can accomplish what you really want to accomplish. I read about people that didn't have the size but made it work anyhow. People that didn't have the background but still succeeded. And it just gave me a thirst to improve myself and to put myself out there and to escape, to find a world that I could be what I wanted to be, which I had limitations that I couldn't do that, in real life. So, and it, to be honest with you, it kind of continues that way today.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Quite something. So did you start writing at school or not until much later, as you say, 7 years ago?
Well, no, not a whole lot. I wrote some stories and things like that when I was in elementary. But as I got older, to be honest, I was too lazy. I had too many other things that I wanted to do, and to sit down and try and write a story. My brain ran faster than my hand could write, and I got frustrated. Then when I was in college, I had an English teacher that told me never to try to write, that I didn't have what it took. She was what they call a plotter. Everything had to have 3 points. Each point had to be subdivided twice, and then, and all of that. We had to have a minimum of 100 note cards, and we had to have, by the time I got done with everything, and to try to write or something, I just read a little story.
It's amazing to me that we've interviewed several people, a lot of them authors, just like you, and it's amazing to me how many have reported negative feedback.
But yeah, Jael, my music teacher when I was 10 or 11 years old said to me, you are on the first lesson of that year, this was in school with the whole class, in front of the whole class. She said, Peter Wright, you're absolutely useless. You will never play an instrument or read music. And I believed that for 45 years. I really believed it. And then I went out and I needed a big goal, and I also had a health issue. I couldn't run any more marathons. So I went and bought a guitar and taught myself how to play. I'm not good, but I proved her wrong. So, yeah. And I think teachers, I think, are a lot more sensitive to children nowadays. They wouldn't get away with that. But that was normal when we were a similar generation. When we were young, wow, teachers could say something or put you off something for life.
Yep.
Sad.
Well, I still don't claim to be able to be a good writer, but I am patting myself on the back. I'm a good storyteller.
Well, yes, I would definitely agree. Having read your novella, we're going to talk about a bit later, that you sent me, I had to read that from start to finish. I think I said to you I'd read it sometime over the weekend. And when I picked it up, I read it from start to finish. I couldn't put it down until I'd finished it. So, yes, you are a very good storyteller. Kathleen, have you got something else there for JL?
Tell us about the community and what you do to service the community, because you do a lot of that, don't you?
Well, I don't do as much as I did. We're still active in our church, although I haven't been in months because of the COVID. We've been shut down. I also get cluster headache, and because of that, hand sanitizer is a major trigger.
Right.
And I can't go. I can't be around people because of that. Every place you walk, people are doing this, and they do that, and then I'm grabbing my head. And so I've been unable to be active, but my wife and I have both worked with our youth group at the church for 29 years. I've been very active with them. We worked with a food pantry for a while, doing pickups from stores and things like that, and tried to do that. And then over different periods of my adult life, I've worked in jail ministry and rescue mission ministry, working with both one-on-one and in group settings with inmates and with guys that are needing help. Homeless or addicted, alcoholic, stuff like that. So about the only thing I haven't worked with is cradle roll and nursery at church.
So here's a philosophical.
Much prefer junior high is my favorite age. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say I've got a philosophical question for you. When you're talking about church, and we know that churches have been struggling to keep attendances up, what do you think the effect of the stay away with the virus? Do you think it'll bring more people to church when things eventually get back to normal, or do you think it'll keep people away from church?
I can't speak for the churches as a whole, because too many churches have become nothing more than just a social outlet. So I can't respond to that. I can tell you that our church and others similar, that we've actually seen a resurgence in interest. That people, had kind of drifted away, but then when it was taken away, then they recognized the need, and so there was a resurgence of people wanting to be there.
Right.
And I tell you, it bugs me to have to sit at home and not be able to be there, because that's my life.
Sure. That's interesting. You should say that. Very interesting.
Yeah. So getting back to your writing, you've written very different genres, from adventure to gospel to social messaging and children. Can you tell us what inspired you to write your books, The Rotund Roland, Stranded at Romson's Lodge, and My Donkey and the Master?
I tell people all the time I don't know what I write, because I don't. I don't have a genre. It's kind of my work ethic. If my writing is an idea comes to my mind, and a story, and my first one actually came to me back in the 80s. Back when, I didn't believe that I could write. And I was driving, over the road then, and had a lot of time to think. And that was shortly after the Blue Lagoon movie and some of the other coming of age stories that were real popular at that time came out. And the question came to my mind: what would happen if a couple of Christian kids that wanted to maintain their values were put in that situation? Would they be able to withstand the temptation, and would they be able to do what was right, or would they succumb to temptation? And how would that happen? So I did a lot of not just philosophical but spiritual thought in how that would go about and how that would happen. So I wrote about two high school kids that were kidnapped, flown to upstate Maine, which is the most remote part in the continental United States. They get dropped off at a hunting lodge, but the pilot hits a goose on takeoff and crashes, leaving them stranded at Romson's Lodge. They have to work together. They have to live together. They have to do everything together to survive. And one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to love each other, or you're going to hate each other.
Yeah.
And so the story works better if you tell that they love each other. So they fall in love, and the temptation is there, but they wanted to maintain their values. So from the very beginning on Sundays, they took Sundays and made that kind of a day of rest where they didn't do a lot, but they also spent the time with the Bible together. And it's not preachy. I mean, it's not a Christian book, although it has Christianity all through it. My purpose was to try and demonstrate how Christianity ought to be lived, and not to try and preach it. Rotund Roland is totally different. It's totally secular. My values come through, but it's clean. The language is clean. But a lot of that comes from part of my background. As a 4'8", 90-pound person, I found out that I would fit in a locker at school. It wasn't because I tried to. And, I took tours of garbage cans and a whole bunch of other places that I didn't want to go. And then too, I had an uncle that was 6'7".
Wow.
And weighed right at 500 pounds. Uncle Tiny was, from the time he was a baby, he was called Fat. And Mom wouldn't let us call him Uncle Fat. Everybody else called him Fat. A couple other drivers started calling him Tiny. And so we called him Uncle Tiny. Well, when I was in the 8th grade, I mouthed off to him once, just once, and he reached out and grabbed me with one hand by the shoulder and held me up, eye level to him, and just chewed on me for a while until he got tired and let go. And I just dropped to the floor. And he did that with one hand out at arms, like he could put a full oil drum on the back of a trailer by himself. Just incredibly strong. But because of his size, he was always put down. I have a brother that is, he's not that size, but he's, I believe he's 6'5", and he's been up around the 300-pound mark. He's gotten a lot of it down, but he was picked on. And I'll be honest, when he was a kid and I was a kid, I wasn't quite as nice as I should have been. But I have observed how he's been treated. I've observed bullying working with teens. And it's also in the younger grades. It's also in adults. So I just tried to address that and tried to demonstrate how bullying can affect people. Now, my donkey and the master, that one comes from, I studied for the ministry, and God put me in lay ministry rather than in a pulpit. But I love the scriptures, and I love the story. And a lot of times people get the idea that the Bible is just do this and do that, and thou shalt not. And it's not. Jesus was a man that walked among us. He was God, but yet he was very much a man. And as such, he interacted with people, and I tried to tell his story through a different viewpoint, that of a friend of the family. He wasn't a disciple. He was a believer, but he wasn't a disciple. And his donkey becomes a part of the story. And the donkey travels through from the time that Joseph meets Mary, this friend who is never named. The narrator of the story is never named because I didn't want anybody trying to tie him to someone in Scripture. But I wanted people to read the gospel and the gospel story just from a different angle, so that you're watching it happen along with somebody else.
Wow, good idea.
And it's just a novelette. It's only 14,700 words or something like that. Just a short read, but it goes all the way from before Joseph and Mary met each other, all the way through until the ascension. Then Mouse in the House, that one, that was just a fun story. I was sitting in my kitchen one night and the mouse ran across the floor, and my crazy brain says, what if? And it started from there. And then I got connected with Donna Setterland, who does illustration from a Disney type of a background. And she just did an awesome job of drawing it, and makes it real, the personality of the mouse and the cat and the dog and the mom and the dad and the baby just comes through. Fun part is anybody that reads Mouse in the House is going to see my granddaughter as a baby, because she took one of her pictures to draw the baby. But it was just a fun story that I wrote and I sent to my daughter just for grins and giggles, and told her to read it to Evie. And she said Evie giggled all the way through. So I dedicated it to Evie, who giggled.
Well done. Very good. We haven't got a lot of time left here, JL. So quick one. Before we ask you for how people can get hold of you, do you have any advice for aspiring writers from your long experience?
My long experience of 7 years. It's very succinct. Put your butt in a chair and your fingers on the keyboard.
Yep.
And just tell the story. Now, if you're one that needs format and you need to have everything laid out. Okay, outline it. Do whatever you need to do, but remember the focus is the story. It's not the style. Get the story, and then make your characters so recognizable and so real that you want to buy them a Christmas card.
Right. Okay.
When you get that, then your reader is going to identify with your character as well. I learned that from another writer. That's not original with me, but I found it very effective.
And certainly I did that with Rotund Roland. I knew big boys at school, little boys at school, boys who got bullied at school. So those characters in that story were really real to me. Kathleen, back to you.
So JL, tell our listeners and viewers how to buy your books and how to get a hold of you.
Well, the easiest way to get a hold of me is just www.jlcallison.com. And my books are available there. Every book that gets purchased, I sign and personalize. So
nice.
Now you can also get them on Amazon. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them at Barnes and Noble. Any place that does books online. Now you're not going to find them in the stores. None of them are carried in the stores, but they're available at Walmart.com, Target.com, wherever you buy books.
Mm-hmm.
The ebooks are all available through Amazon. I don't know, Smashwords, Smashwords.com is a good source for Rotund Roland and for My Donkey and the Master. The Mouse in the House ebook is available through Amazon, but don't bother. Just spend a few dollars more and get I have it in paperback as well as hardcover. It doesn't come through in digital. I'm sorry. On a tablet, yeah, it's okay, but you don't get the flow that you're able to get with the book. The only reason I put that one digital was because I had to, and I don't recommend it. But the other books are all available, both digital as well as
excellent. Thank you.
Paperback.
Thanks, JL. That's really good. We have a couple of seconds. Marketing your books, you do all that yourself?
At libraries, author fairs, and things like that. I do some on Facebook, and anybody is welcome to connect with me on Facebook. I'd love to have you. Just JL Callison.
Really good.
CA, don't recognize the sound of it.
That's good. I am struggling with my internet.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, JL. Thank you for all the listeners for tuning in once again. And we will see you next time with another great guest.
Thank you so much.